Before we move into the area, get my ink colour up there, right? Before we move into the area of sort of health and safety and good practice and problems that can occur with using computers, I just want to do a very short video about health and safety, the law. And I want to focus on the law because you'd be surprised at how minimal the law is when it comes to sort of health and safety. There are basically 4 sorts of areas that we want to look at. Area number 1, and this is the one that perhaps is, not to say the hardest, but the one that people can be a little bit vague on. Analyze workstations. It is the law that an employer asking someone to use computers, they must analyze their workstation and ensure that they meet minimum requirements. Now that's what the law actually states. But the reality is that minimum requirements is kind of a little bit vague, to be honest with you. You know, they need to be, when we analyze workstations, what they mean by that is really to do with, is it safe? You know, are there any risks involved? And when it comes to computers, now what risks are there? I mean, the major risk of using a computer is somebody throwing a cup of coffee over the back of a computer and it going pop. You know, that's kind of really to, I suppose maybe things like trip hazards, maybe not overloading electrical sockets, things like that are things that you could address. And what we mean by minimum requirements is that, we'll go on to ergonomics in the next video, but it's kind of like regarded that the minimum requirement in using a computer is that you should provide adjustable chairs. Now that's kind of weird because at my school the kids, we have to sit on plastic chairs, and by adjustable chairs it means that adjustable means that you should be able to adjust the height at which you're sitting, because the whole point being that when you're using a computer, if this is your eyes just here, I'm doing my little stick man, your eyes should be level with the top of the monitor. And if you kind of like don't have chairs that can go up and down, technically you're not doing that. So is a school breaking the law by not giving you, you know, wheelie chairs that you can adjust the height? I don't know. That's an interesting one. I've never known a school actually being done for this particular thing. I'm not aware of anyone actually being, you know, prosecuted under this one. So, you know, minimum requirements, I think, are a little bit vague. I mean, for example, I certainly know that various textbooks will mention the idea that your monitor should be able to tilt and swivel. Well, they don't at our school. So are we breaking the law? Ask your mum and dad or your family, whatever it's going to be. You know, does your monitor at work tilt and swivel? If it doesn't, is the employer breaking the law? They probably are, but I can't really see that anything's ever going to happen over that one. And also, another thing that textbooks tend to say is that there should be sufficient space, which I guess is part of the analysis of the workstation, for the keyboard, the mouse, and the monitor. You shouldn't be too crammed in. Well, I'm literally sitting in my school. It's a Saturday, and we've got 34 computers in this, and there's barely room for kids to move their elbows, because the room is quite small. So, are we breaking the law? I don't know. Maybe we are. Maybe somebody from the health and safety executive needs to come round and examine our school and go, no, you must knock down walls and make the classrooms bigger. I don't know. I'm not really convinced by this particular one, but apparently it is the law. Now, there are things that are legal requirements that you can enforce. And the first one is that if you're an employer and you are making people work on computers, then you must ensure that they can have regular breaks. The thing is, how long is regular and how long is a break? And in fact, the law doesn't actually give any defining figures. It's kind of regarded that maybe for every hour you allow 15 minutes. But the thing is, you're probably thinking, my school, we have to work for an hour and we don't get a 15-minute break. And that's because there are no real guidelines on this one. And the other thing is, if you're working in an environment, a workplace, then people could argue that if you go up and go and use the photocopier, that's a break. If you go up and file something in a cabinet somewhere, that's a break. And in fact, when you come to think about it, this is really about regular breaks from what we call constant use. And I think you would struggle to find a particular job where somebody is constantly using a computer all day. The only thing that I can think of, really, is if somebody has a job as a data entry clerk. That's the sort of job where you're constantly using a computer all day. Well, the employer there, I'm fairly certain, will actually insist that their employees take regular breaks. And they can't complain if the employees say, I want regular breaks, because it's the law. You're entitled to them. The next law is that the employer must pay for, and they must arrange, interestingly enough, eye tests. See, the thing is, there's a school of thought that says, human beings, let's be honest about it, we've got eyes, and we've all been seeing for tens of thousands of years, but we haven't been working at computers for much more, constantly. Data entry clerk, that job didn't exist 20 years ago. It's only been really in the last, say, 20 years that, in fact, we've had jobs where you're working on a computer screen all day long. And the law says that we must, the employer must arrange and pay for eye tests, because there's a school of thought that says that working with computers may lead to, I'll put a question mark there, poor eyesight or deterioration in eyesight. So in fact, poor eyesight and deterioration into eyesight leads to the concept of glasses. Yes, you're going to have to pay for your glasses. Now, the employer then technically would have to pay for your glasses should it be the case that your eyesight has deteriorated as a result of using the computer. And one, that's kind of difficult to prove, and two, don't expect designer ones. That's not going to happen. An employer's going to go, I'll give you £100 towards some glasses, and if you want your Moschino ones, then you can pay the extra. All right, but that's something that is something that does happen. If you're a data entry clerk, and that's a good, a job, a good example of a job. I'm not saying it's a good job, but it's a good example of a job. Then you would expect your employer to pay for you to have regular eye tests. I guess once a year, something like that. The key one about the law, number 4, and it's the last one as well. It's quite a short video, this one, is that the employer must provide you with training on how to use the equipment. Now, what's interesting about this is that the employer must provide the training, and that's normally done during what they call an induction period. Normally when you get your first job, or you go for a job and you're involved in computers, you'll normally have an induction training period. And certainly in jobs that I've had, I haven't always been a teacher, normally the induction period was about 1 week, where they would give you training about all the company and the computer use and stuff like that. And you're trained in that period to use the computers as the employer directs you to. It is also the law that the employee follows the training that they have been provided with. The bottom line is if you're trained, for example, to make sure your eyes are level with the top of the screen, and they can prove that you have that, and then you don't do that, and you develop neck problems, you cannot then sue the company and say, well, I've developed neck problems. And they say, well, we trained you not to do it. You're just an idiot for actually not doing it. So employees must also follow the training that people give when it comes to computer use and screen equipment that is provided. So it's quite straightforward, really. That's the end of this video, really. Just a quick flip back. Oh, I don't know why that does that. I'll remind you what number 3 was in a moment. So they analysed the workstation, regular breaks. Number 3 was eye tests, and also the employer must provide you with training. That's the law. We'll move on to effects of health and safety and things you can do to try and minimize the impact of using computers in the next video.